Hi, welcome back to the Army Issue Live YouTube channel. I'm Caitlin Nixon and I'm so excited you're here for this video. Today we're going to talk about deployments. This is the second video in my deployment series, and this one talks about actually going through the deployment. So I'm really excited to jump in and learn about that. So the first thing we're going to talk about is expectations with communication. Communication is so important during a deployment, and it's really important to figure out with your spouse what your expectations of each other are during this deployment. You could be on a totally different page, and if you have a conversation, you guys are going to be able to work it out before you get there, and it's going to make life so much easier. Every deployment is also different. So if you were used to the first deployment, maybe your spouse went on and you guys talked all the time, you got to Skype or Facebook Messenger video or just text back and forth the entire day and you guys could keep up. Just know if they're going on a different deployment, they might not have the same amount of time on their hands or the same amount of communication devices. Like, they might not be able to video, their internet might be really bad. So try not to have the same expectations of a different deployment if it was really good. These days, usually you can have pretty good communication. I know that during our first deployment, we didn't have as much communication. And most of that was just due to David's job, and the hours that he could call me were the same hours everyone else could call. So the internet was really hard sometimes, but we were able to Facebook Messenger and text quite a bit, so that really helped out. Our second deployment, he was so busy again on his job that and I was so busy at home with Weston and going through everything we had to go through. We really didn't communicate as much as we did on the first one, and that's okay. You just have to talk about that and make sure you guys both have clear standards and expectations for each other. And also, if having a conversation like that before they go is awesome, but just know you can have everything planned out, and then when they get there, their deployment looks a lot different, or they're picked up for something else and attached to a different unit, and it just might not be as easy. So it's important to stay adaptive to the environment and the job that they're going to do during the deployment. Also, a big one, when I hear that spouses during a deployment live or die on the schedule of talking with their spouse. And it can be so limiting for your life. I've had friends that won't go out and do things they had planned because they were afraid they'd miss a call from, their husband. And I understand that, especially if it's a place where there is a lot going on and you're really scared during the deployment, that it's important for you to get that communication every day just for to make you feel better. Peace of mind, knowing that you talk to them and they're safe. I totally get that. But try to also enjoy and live your life, and don't live or die on their schedule, basically, because that can really negatively affect you and your time during the deployment. Something else that Dave and I experienced personally on his first deployment to Afghanistan was we were living in two completely different worlds. My world was safe and first world country, and my problems paled in comparison to the things that he saw on a daily basis or he had to put up with. I remember one story where I went to get my nails done, and I don't go out and get my nails done very often. I had Mia at that point, and so that was just kind of a luxury, and when I went to go, my expectations were so high just to have so much fun and time to myself. So one time I went out to get my nails done, and it was just a disaster. I don't remember exactly what happened, but later I was complaining to David about that, and I could tell he was kind of mad that I was talking about having, this bad experience. And later when he got back, we dove down deeper and he told me, difficult days for me during the deployment were nothing in compared to the things that he was dealing with. So when he was listening to my difficult story of going to get my nails done, it was just so ridiculous and so silly, And I can see that totally from his perspective. So if your spouse just really doesn't seem into what you're saying or a little frustrated and think that some of the things you're worrying about is silly, just try to keep in perspective that they're living a completely different life in a completely different country, and they see things a lot differently and they're experiencing life a lot differently than we are. And by the same token, Dave learned that, what was going on in my life, it seems silly and, in the realm of what's really happening in the world. But he did learn to be okay, well, I'm sorry you had that bad experience, so it can go both ways. But that's just something to think about before and kind of be looking for those types of conversations. So moving on to my absolutely favorite thing to talk about when it comes to deployments. When I hear that Dave is going on a deployment, first thing I think is, I do have to say the first thing I think is I'm sad that I'm going to be missing him. Secondly, I think about, woohoo, we're going to be making more money. Thirdly, and my favorite, is this is an opportunity for me to do some really serious soul searching. It is a time for me to completely focus on myself and to go after some goals. So I absolutely love to sit down, I make a list of things that I want to get accomplished, books I want to read or topics that I want to research that I really don't have the time to do when he's home, because I'm spending a lot of my time with him when he's home. So when he's gone, instead of, dreading this life without him or thinking about all that he'll be missing or that we'll be missing together, I try to focus and really put all of my energies into myself and making myself a better person. Both times that Dave's deployed, I've lost over 20 pounds during the deployment. And that's just because it's easier for me to buckle down and to go after my goals when it's, I can fully concentrate on myself and make that a focus. So I want you to get excited about that. Try to think about that when you're thinking about your spouse going on a deployment. Look at it like a challenge for you to be able to focus on yourself for once, and look at that as kind of a luxury and something to get excited about, because it is. You'll learn a lot about yourself and you'll surprise yourself. So that's always kind of exciting, and I encourage you to do that. Something else that is really important is finding a community. When your spouse is gone, when they're your person, and mostly your spouse is your one person that you confide in, that you talk to at the end of the day, you share all your inside jokes with, you watch the same shows, it can get really sad during the deployment when you're missing them so much. But find some people that you can connect with, and don't try to replace your spouse or do the same things with them, because it's just not going to end up being the same and it's going to be sad. But look for something else, to do with some people outside of your normal routine, people that you see in your life, outside of what you normally encounter. Or just decide to make more connections with family that you haven't talked to. I encourage you to put it on the calendar. Make something weekly or daily, depending on your needs. But try to find that community that will kind of carry you through, and you'll look back on that and be like, wow, I had such a great time with those people, and I'm so glad that I had them. It made the deployment so much easier. Life will get so hard if you just sit inside and kind of close yourself off during the deployment. and it's easier to get down in the dumps and just miss your husband or your wife the whole time. But going out there and seeking that community is going to be completely worth it. Even if, like I said, even if it's family that you connect with, or writing letters, or getting a pen pal, or emailing with your uncle or something, find a community and jump right in. So we talked a little bit about your marriage and ways to help that through communication and expectations. And we talked a little bit about yourself and how you can focus on soul searching and self-development for yourself. But also you have to mention family during a deployment. If you have kids, then the deployment is going to have a major effect on your children. And every child takes it completely different. Some kids struggle with more anxiety. They don't sleep through the night as well. Some kids do fine. They just like reminders of seeing, daddy or mommy on a video or recording, or getting to talk to them. But just keep in mind and kind of be on the lookout and be looking for signs that your kid is having a hard time, and that the deployment is probably part of that. I know that my daughter is really smart, and she kind of milked that when she realized that, oh, if I say that I'm sad because daddy's gone, then nobody will, say anything. You can't say anything back to her when she says that. But anyway, my kids have done a really good job through the deployments that we've gone through, but just constantly be looking for them struggling in that way, and ways to help, and ways for your spouse to help too. Don't leave them out of the loop on what's going on in life. You can be very choosy with what you decide to say. I know that when David was gone this last deployment, and Weston, we were going to a lot of appointments, cardiologists, surgeons. Sometimes there'd be some information in those appointments that I just didn't pass on because they weren't super important. They weren't something that was set in stone. It would be something else for Dave to worry about. So I kept a lot of that kind of stuff to myself and could tell him afterwards in my own time. But, be kind of choosy on what you want to share with them. But absolutely, if your kids are having problems, don't keep that from them. They can find ways and brainstorm, and they can be super creative, and ways to help connect more with your child, and help them through those struggles. The last thing I want to talk about is if you're in an area, or your spouse is in an area during the deployment where they can't be reached and communication is really sparse. Something that I've done in the past to really help with that is writing in a journal. One summer when we were in college, Dave was gone the whole summer, and I was pregnant with Mia, and I couldn't talk to him. And I know a summer isn't very long compared to a deployment, but this did really help me. I wrote in a journal every single day. I would write down my whole day, things that I would usually talk to Dave about, even jokes or something. And every once in a while I'd tear them out and I'd send them to him. I don't know if he read them, but it made me feel better that I was still talking to him in my own way and still sharing my life with him. So it didn't feel like it was lost and there was no communication and he'll never know what I did today, those types of things. So keep that in mind. If you have a hard time communicating, get a journal and keep it by your nightstand. Just write anything you want to at the end of the day. Just pretend like you're talking to your spouse and getting things off your chest. It's a great way to do that. Here's a great tip that really just doesn't go in any category. It's just a simple tip. There are going to be days where you absolutely just miss your spouse so much, and nothing's gonna help that. So if you prepare for that and you just know there's gonna be some days that everything's falling apart and you can't even talk to them and you miss everything about them so much, it just feels so overwhelming. have a plan for that feeling in that moment. Buy a bottle of champagne, stick it in the fridge, pop that cork. When that day comes, go get in the bath. Do something that's going to help you and make you feel better, but also like allow you to have the feelings, because that's important too, is to acknowledge how much you miss them, but don't wallow in it, because that will just make it harder on you and on everyone. All right, well, that sums up my video on deployment. I hope that you got something out of it. If you have something that you'd like to add, please comment and let me know. Thank you for watching, and if you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe, and I will catch you later. Deployments are hard. They just suck. Let's see, I thought of something else. What was I gonna say? I don't remember. Expectation communication station. When the spouse. So I just finished my video on deployments and I forgot to say cut. And it's like my favorite part of the video. So I'm gonna say cut and then I'll add this to the video. Good thing it's in blue.